Bletchley Park, a modest estate in the English countryside, that became the site of the greatest intellectual battle of World War II. While cannons roared on the battlefields, here, in the silence of wooden barracks, an invisible war of minds was waged. A battle for information, for enemy secrets, for the ability to read what no one was meant to read. Nazi Germany considered its codes absolutely impenetrable. The Enigma machine, a brilliant invention capable of creating trillions of combinations. The Lorenz machine, even more complex, used for the most secret correspondence of the High Command. The Germans were certain these codes were impossible to break. They were wrong, and their mistake cost them the war. The Enigma machine was not born as a weapon of war, but as a commercial device. In the 1920s, it was sold to banks and corporations to protect business correspondence. But the German military saw something more in it. They improved the mechanism, added rotors, created a system of daily setting changes. By the start of the war, Enigma had become an encryption monster. The operating principle seemed simple. An operator pressed a key. An electrical signal passed through 3 or 4 rotors, each changing the letter according to its own scheme. Then the signal reflected and returned via a different path. A plugboard added an additional layer of protection, swapping letters before encryption began. The result? Over 100 trillion possible combinations. Every day the settings changed. Every message was unique. But Enigma was intended for tactical messages, coordinates, divisional orders, field reports. For strategic correspondence of the Reich's highest leadership, there existed the Lorenz machine. 12 rotors instead of 3. A teletype system that eliminated the human factor. The British gave it the codename Tunny. This machine encrypted Hitler's personal orders, generals' negotiations, plans for the largest operations. Breaking Lorenz seemed absolutely impossible. At the center of this story stands a man whose name became synonymous with genius, Alan Turing, a mathematician, logician, visionary. In 1936, even before the war, he described a hypothetical computing machine capable of solving any mathematical problem. This concept formed the foundation of all modern computers. But in 1939, Turing faced not a theoretical, but a deadly practical task. Breaking Enigma. Turing understood the key points. It was impossible to check trillions of combinations manually. A machine was needed that thinks faster than a human. Together with Gordon Welchman, he created a device they called the Bombe, in honor of Polish predecessors. The first bomb, named Agnes, became operational in August 1940. It consisted of 36 drums simulating Enigma rotors, and could check thousands of combinations in minutes. But Turing was not alone. Around him gathered a team of brilliant minds, mathematicians from Cambridge and Oxford, linguists, chess players, even crossword puzzle champions. British intelligence sought people capable of seeing patterns where others saw chaos. Over 10,000 people worked at Bletchley Park. Most were young women, bomb operators, those who set up the machines, checked results, worked around the clock in 3 shifts. Breaking Lorenz required a different genius, Tommy Flowers, a post office engineer. He created Colossus, the first programmable electronic computer. 2,500 electronic valves, 5,000 operations per second. Colossus read punch tape at 5,000 characters per second, analyzed patterns, searched for weaknesses in the cipher. It was an engineering miracle, decades ahead of its time. How does one break the unbreakable? The secret lay not in brute force, but in human weaknesses. Turing developed a method based on cribs, known text fragments. German operators were human, and humans create patterns. Weather reports always began the same way. Reports use standard formulations. The word Wetterverheißung, weather forecast, became a goldmine for cryptanalysts. Turing's bombe used these cribs to test settings. The machine didn't try all combinations sequentially. It looked for logical contradictions. If a proposed setting created an impossible situation, for example, a letter encrypting to itself, which was impossible on Enigma, the machine discarded that option and moved on. Welchman's diagonal board accelerated the process tenfold, filtering out false stops. But technology was only part of the success. Real magic happened in analysts' minds. The Bombe method, developed by Turing to break naval Enigma, used statistical analysis. Cryptanalysts compared letter frequencies, searched for repeating sequences, applied probability theory. Each intercepted message became part of a vast database that helped crack the next ones. The Germans helped break themselves. Lazy operators used predictable settings, for example, 3 identical letters in a row. Soldiers in love encrypted their girlfriends' names in daily keys. One operator transmitted the same test message every day. LOLL. These human weaknesses opened doors to a system that seemed mathematically impenetrable. Breaking Lorenz required different methods. There were no cribs here. Messages were too varied. But in 1941, a German operator made a fatal mistake. He transmitted the same long message twice, only slightly changing the text, but used the same settings. 2 different texts encrypted with 1 key. For cryptanalysts, this was a gift. The British compared the 2 messages, subtracted one from the other, and suddenly the structure of Lorenz became visible. Tommy Flower's Colossus turned this insight into a system. The machine analyzed statistics, searched for patterns in data streams, used methods we would today call machine learning. By war's end, 10 Colossus machines operated, each the size of a small room. They read Hitler's most secret orders faster than German generals themselves. The scale of Bletchley Park's influence on the war's outcome cannot be overestimated. Historians agree. Breaking Enigma shortened the war by at least 2 years, and saved millions of lives. The Battle of the Atlantic, where German submarines sank Allied convoys, was won thanks to the ability to read Admiral Denitz's orders. Convoys changed routes, avoiding submarine wharf packs. The Normandy landings became possible because the Allies knew Hitler expected invasion at Calais, not Normandy. They read his orders, saw division positions, understood enemy strategy. D-Day became the greatest military operation in history, not only thanks to soldiers' bravery, but also thanks to information advantage. Breaking Lorenz gave the Allies even more. Hitler's personal correspondence with generals, summer offensive plans, tank division deployments. All this was read at Bletchley almost in real time. The Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, was won by Soviet forces partly because the British warned them of German plans through their agents. But after the war came a long silence. The British government classified all information about Bletchley Park for 30 years. Heroes who saved the world couldn't tell their families about their achievements. Alan Turing died in 1954 under mysterious circumstances, persecuted for his homosexuality. Only in the 1970s did truth begin emerging. Only then did the world learn that the computer age was born not in university laboratories, but in secret wartime barracks. The story of Bletchley Park is a reminder of the power of human intellect. Mathematicians defeated machines. Logic defeated chaos. Teamwork of thousands of people, each performing their small part of an incredibly complex puzzle, changed the course of history. Today we live in a world created by these people. Every computer, every smartphone, every encryption algorithm, all are heirs to Turing's bomb and Flower's Colossus. They didn't just win the war, they created the future. Subscribe to the channel to learn more about amazing stories that changed the world. In the next episode, the tragic fate of Alan Turing, a genius the world failed to protect.